Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of the Athletes Platform, where we put the athlete first and give them a place to share their story, as well as provide you, the listener, with the best insight to help push you on and off the track. I'm your host, Aaron Booth, and if you were able to guess today's guest from last week's hint, well done. She is two-time Paralympic long jump champion, Anna Grimaldi. As always, head on over to Instagram, please, and check her out, Anna Kate Grimaldi, on Instagram. Please give her a follow, help support the athletes that we get onto the Athletes Platform. As I mentioned, Anna is a two-time Paralympic gold medalist in the long jump. She is the silver and bronze medalist from the World Championships in 2019 and 2015 respectively. She is the 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter, and long jump national record holder for New Zealand in the T47 classification. And in 2021, Anna was ranked number 2 long jumper out of all female long jumpers in New Zealand, including able-bodied athletes, which is pretty amazing. And off the track, in 2017, Anna was appointed a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit for her services to athletics, which in New Zealand is a pretty big deal. I got to catch up with Anna while she was in MIQ after returning from Tokyo, and we had a really great chat. In this episode, she explains what the T47 category means and how para-athletes get classified. She talks about how important representation and role models were to her when she was getting into sport. We talk a lot about the 2 gold medals she won at the Paralympics in Rio and in Tokyo and compare how they differ from one another, as well as Anna sharing how she overcame mental and physical setbacks, identity issues, post-game depression, and much, much more. This was honestly a pretty deep episode, and Anna was super honest and upfront with all of her answers, and especially around things that a lot of athletes struggle with. So it's definitely worth a listen. Without further ado, it's time to let Anna share her story.
Awesome, thanks for reminding me.
No, that's cool. So firstly, can you just explain to everyone your category? So T47, or actually just
Yes.
like a brief overview of how categories are kind of made up, and then just a quick look into your category.
Sure. So in the Paralympics, there's a heap of different classifications and the systems work differently within each sport. And I don't really know how the other sports work, but for athletics, it's sort of chunked up into groups of people that have similar disabilities. So people that have cerebral palsy in certain parts of their body, they go together, and people are in wheelchairs or certain levels of like spinal function and amputees. So, and so obviously I was born without my right hand just below the wrist, and I'm a T47. So T stands for track and F stands for field.
Okay.
And long jump is classed as a track event, I think, because you run.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So I think it must be grouped in track because it's mainly a running event. And 47 is an arm amputee classification. So it means that I'm a below elbow amputee.
Right.
But I also, my event in Tokyo, I competed with T46 and T45. So T45 is missing part of both arms. A T46 is above elbow, and it also kind of encompasses other disabilities in the upper extremities, basically. So if there's a lack of muscle function or mobility issues in shoulders or elbows or wrists and stuff, that's kind of all lumped in together. But I think athletics probably has the fairest system, and I think that's probably because we've got the most athletes and we can afford to sort of group them all together.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I wanted to ask, because I'd seen some things in like the news about how there's like people can kind of cheat the system, and I think it was like more directed towards maybe like visually impaired athletes. Is it like in your classification, in your category, is there any chance of that? Probably not, right?
I mean, I can't because I'm obviously missing my hand. So like we had to do x-rays and stuff, and I think it does go off function. So there's like a clinical assessment where they put you in a doctor's room basically, and they measure you up and test your abilities and blah blah blah. But then they also watch you on the track, so they watch you at a competition and they assess your actual ability as well.
So is that standard practice, like for every competition you go to? So every single one you go to, you have to get like
no. So I got classified earlier. It must have been in 2014. I went and got classified in Australia, and because I'm an amputee, my classification just stays for life because obviously I'm not going to grow a hand back. But I think cerebral palsy and other classifications, mainly cerebral palsy, maybe vision impaired as well, they have reviews every while.
In case it gets worse,
in case they get better or worse or and that can be tricky. I think I'm lucky, obviously, in my classification there's not really any, it's kind of quite black and white. You either you have a hand, you don't have a hand, it doesn't work, it does work. I think I'm lucky in that regard, but I think that has been a problem. And all of the cerebral palsy athletes all over the world in athletics had to get reclassified a couple of years ago. So, but I think they just try and make it as fair as possible. And obviously there'll be people that slip through the cracks, as there always is.
I mean, you'd like to think that they wouldn't, but it's just
exactly.
Just like doping in sport.
100%.
Like, you don't.
It's kind of another form of doping, I guess, is the classification system. But I think they've done pretty well. I think there's not that many people that would slip through the gaps, especially when they watch them in a competition. You can see how well someone can do something. No,
that makes sense. And then could you also go back to like the beginning? So what was your first introduction to sport, and then athletics, and then what kind of made you want to specialize in long jump?
For sure. I think my first sporty memory was just like my dad, before I went to school, he taught me to catch and throw a ball. I think my parents really wanted to make sure when I was growing up that when I went to school I wouldn't be excluded because I didn't have one hand or I couldn't do something. And so it was really important to them that they sort of, helped me to learn how to tie my shoes and to also throw and catch a ball. I mean, those are things that you do at school to join in on ball sports at playtime. So I remember that happening quite a bit. And then I just started playing netball and basketball quite a bit. I love running around and I was quite sporty, but I think as a kid and go through into high school as well, sport was kind of my safety net. It was one of those places where I didn't really feel disabled. I was playing netball just as good, if not kind of better than some of my other peers. And it was kind of that safe space where I could really be myself. I was quite shy about having one hand in everyday life as a kid, and so when I went on that netball court, like there was no hiding. I couldn't hide, but also I didn't really want to either. Like I was just as good, and I loved sport, and then I guess I'd never really done athletics before, just the odds school sports or whatever. But I got an email from Paralympics New Zealand, who I'd actually never heard of before. I didn't know what Paralympics New Zealand was, and that was when I was 16, the year 12 at school, and I just sort of emailed back and was like, I don't know how you got my email, but you might have the wrong person.
Had you done any sort of like structured sport or anything, or did they just
I don't know. I mean, we have someone gave my name to them, obviously, and I don't know exactly who that person is, but I've got to thank them a lot because obviously it's led me on this cool path. But I'd never been involved in like a rep level or anything. I'd always just been at high school and playing in our school teams and stuff. So it was kind of it was a strange email, and I'm still really not sure how it happened. But anyway, I met with Raylene Bates, who was our team manager at the time and team coach, and she just sort of said, come along. And I was like, sweet, I've been doing heaps of long distance. I'll be a great long distance runner, whatever. I'll start that. And I went along and found out that my classification, I'm only considered disabled in 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, long jump and javelin. And those were my only events to get me there. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like I've been doing heaps of long distance running. I'm not fast. I'm a scrawny short girl from Dunedin. I can't run very fast.
So there are only 5 events for your classification that you can enter.
I think they've decided that because I have an elbow, my arm drive. Because I don't have a hand, my arm drive isn't that good, and I need arm drive for 1 to 4 plus long jump and
more power events.
Yeah, for power events, and then longer distance, it's not such a big deal.
Right.
So I wasn't going to be a long distance runner, and at the time I was like, oh my god, what am I doing here? I can't do anything.
Yeah.
But I actually just got the other day sent from the camp that I went to in Dunedin to sort of like test out the events. My very first attempt at long jump.
Yeah.
And it actually wasn't that bad. I was quite surprised. I remember it being worse, but the video I was like, oh.
Do you have a distance on it, or?
I think it was just under 4 meters, which isn't. I just ran up from a short run up and like landed on 2 feet. So I mean,
for a distance,
it wasn't the most amazing. Yeah, good. exactly. So I was pretty stoked. I think probably my netball and stuff like being jumpy and stuff like that. I think I was, I wasn't horrific, but I wasn't the best. But I mean, that's where I met Brent, my coach, and I started up with him like a month later, I think, and we haven't stopped training together since, which was kind of cool. So that was kind of my first thing, and I really didn't know how sprinting worked, and so I just thought you could just start sprinting and you would just keep going. Like you just never stopped. You just ran at your top speed, and that was that. And I got asked to run a 400 meters, and I just started sprinting. And I think I went for 200. I must have got like a PB still in the 200 meters. And then I had to walk for a little bit, and then I sort of jogged across the line. And I was like, oh my god, that's so embarrassing.
That's like high school sports when guys and girls enter in like the 400, the 800, and it's just first lap or first 200, just like all out.
Boasted.
And then you're like, shit, I've got another lap.
I think that I just remember finishing the race and being like, that's not how I thought that would go. Like, surely people can just get they make it look easy on the TV. Yeah. But no, had to have a wee pause in the middle and then jog over the line. But I mean, it was a cool start, and like there was people at that camp like Holly Robinson and Jess Hamill who have had amazing careers, and it was kind of cool that they lived in Dunedin, and I could kind of see the pathway of like getting to places. I think without being able to see where you can go and see that people have done what you want to do, that can be a bit more tricky. So it was really cool to meet those guys and sort of do a little bit of training with them. So I think that was kind of what started it all, really.
Yeah, I definitely think, by someone putting your name forward and getting an email. I think what you just said is like for any sport or any discipline is just having someone there, and for you, having the likes of Holly and Jess kind of showing you the way that there are opportunities for you going forward, and that you can make an athletic career out of it.
For sure, exactly. And I think
any event, I think that's huge.
Definitely, without having a bit of a, and it was kind of because I'd never done it before. It was like, can I commit to this? I knew I wanted to represent New Zealand somehow, and this was kind of an opportunity. But like being able to see that it could be done from Dunedin, from a couple of girls, with disabilities, that was pretty cool as well. So,
definitely
it was a cool camp.
Models. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've watched and read like a lot of the articles and interviews you put out, and you've spoken a lot about some of the progression from then until Rio, where you won your first Paralympics. But I want to talk about the differences between Rio and Tokyo. And I was talking to Nick Southgate the other day, and said I was about to interview you, and he said your quote where you said, "I won Rio on accident, but I won Tokyo on purpose." Like, hands down, that's probably one of the coolest quotes like either of us have heard. Like, that was just, it was so honest and just so like, it was awesome to hear that. Like, I don't know if many people would actually like own up to that.
And I think it's quite genuine. I mean, obviously I did not train and I just rocked up and won. Like, that's not how it happened. But I think in terms of, that camp was in 2013 and the games were in 2016. And I think when I left that camp, I was talking to someone and he was sort of saying, let's go for Rio. And I was kind of like, what?
3 years.
Like, this takes you. Yeah, I was like, there's less than 3 years happening here. Like, I'll probably aim for Tokyo.
Yeah.
You know, that's awesome. But I think leading into Rio, it's just like how everyone starts, I think. You know, you just get a PB nearly every week and you're just like riding a high. You're like, wow, this is awesome. It's just going to carry on like this river. And that was awesome. Like, my confidence was kind of high. I mean, I was pretty naive. I had no idea what I was doing. I really didn't even particularly understand the long jump really that well yet. And we went there and yeah, I still kind of can't believe that happened, that I ended up winning. I mean, the distance that I ended up winning, I knew I was capable of, but I didn't necessarily think that would get me the gold. And yeah, it was just one of those experiences where it was kind of like a whirlwind. From when I started, it was just awesome, and it just kept going. And then the gold was obviously the top, and
so yeah,
it sort of sent me on this path.
Yeah. So then going from that whirlwind 3 years of just awesomeness to then getting a gold, how did that compare to Tokyo, like the lead into Tokyo? I mean, expectations, you obviously didn't expect it in Rio. Did you expect to win it in Tokyo, or like did you feel any added pressure from external sources that like I have to win this?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I won last time and I didn't necessarily feel, I struggled a little bit when I got home because I didn't necessarily feel like I deserved it or that I was the best in the field. And that was sort of the idea I had, was if you win, you're the best. And I didn't necessarily feel that. And I struggled a little bit with that sort of mindset for a little bit, and the feeling like I needed to prove that I was good enough to be a gold medalist. Having only just started 3 years ago, I really didn't know how to do that. And I think coming into Tokyo, I mean, there's been another 5 years and I've learned a heck of a lot. The road, you know, to Rio was just up, and then I broke my foot the next year. So we got back in September and my foot started playing up in January, and I just sort of made it work all the way through to World Champs in July. And we went to pre-camp, and basically when we arrived in London, I couldn't walk, I couldn't run. I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And so I ran 200 meters in the heat, and I made the final, and I hobbled off, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like, I don't think I can walk even to the bus, let alone run another race tomorrow, do 100 and then do the long jump. So we ended up scratching from the final and the 100 and trying to make the long jump work, because obviously I'd won the year before and I was still a little bit
feeling
like I need to prove myself. Yeah, exactly. So we put everything into it, and I was leading till the last round, but I was held together by pieces of tape and a bit of a wish and a hope. And it was probably the worst experience. I felt like I was trying to clutch for something, grabbing at straws, doing anything. And in the last round I dropped into fourth, and I got a foul on my last jump, and I couldn't do anything about it. It was kind of one of those experiences where you're a bit like, what just happened?
Yeah, like especially in the last round for three girls to outjump you, it's almost just like within the space of a couple minutes.
I know,
just bang.
exactly. I know, I was just kind of like, oh my God. And then, you know, there was that fire was still there, and I ended up, you know, obviously running harder or whatever than I had, and I got a foul and didn't have a chance to sort of have my last say. And that was pretty devastating. I mean, I came fourth by 1 centimeter and lost the gold by 3. I think everyone else was within, you know, so it was like a pretty tight competition, and I kind of couldn't believe it. But I think, looking back now, I'm kind of glad that I didn't win, because it kind of set us on a path of like, right, we need to get this foot sorted out and see what was going on. And it took a few months after I got back, but we found out I had a stress fracture and my jumping foot. And, you know, looking back on it now, I'm like, how the heck did you manage to put 6 jumps together and come fourth? Like, you were, my navicular was ready to snap in half, and or it was snapped in half at that stage. So I mean, the next 4 years or so were just such a stark difference to the lead up to Rio, and it kind of felt like I was like, damn it, I didn't have a chance to sort of prove myself. And, you know, like I won in Rio, but, you know, now I'm probably not going to be able to jump again. That was sort of the vibe of the injury, was like, this was going to be pretty tough to get back from.
So then how did you come back from that? I mean, obviously physically you came back from that to do so well in Tokyo, but like I often find injuries if you've had like lots of setbacks in a row, it's more the mental like comeback. That
For sure.
like that 100% to me at least is like so much harder. So like, how did you deal with firstly feeling like you had something to prove, which like can weigh a lot on you, to then missing out by 7
For sure. I think, well, when I got diagnosed, I was sort of said that it would be 6 months till I'd be back competing. And it got to being 6 months and I'd broken into a jog once. My body wasn't ready, but also I think my mind wasn't ready. I was sort of in a funny place where my identity was kind of hung up on that I was the gold medalist. Like that's how people knew me. And I wasn't even able like to do any form of running. You know, I was just walking across the road and I was hobbling, and it was kind of this weird time, a bit of like a loss of identity kind of. And I think I really relied on the people that I had around me to sort of scrape me off the floor. They, you know, I definitely wouldn't be here now if I didn't have such a tight-knit community, especially in the Dunedin High Performance Centre. We don't have that many athletes down there, and so, you know, I was just really lucky that the people down there were willing to sort of put as much effort in as I was willing to put in, and hold my hand on the days that weren't very good. But we basically just did everything that we pulled in experts, you know, podiatrists and doctors and physios and stuff, and basically did every single thing they said. And I don't think it was until just before World Champs in 2019 that I felt like I was ready. So that's just over 2 years since I broke my foot. And considering, you know, we were given that it was going to be about 6 months, that's kind of tough mentally to be like, he said I was meant to be ready to jump in March, and it's the next March and I'm still not ready. You know, it's like, I think that was probably the toughest thing. And I mean, I spoke to a lot of people and had some pretty average thoughts and had conversations where it was just poor me, but I was pretty lucky that I had people that were okay to listen to that and sort of show me why I was feeling like that. And I think it just took a lot of thinking and realizing why. I think it wasn't probably till after I broke my foot that I realized that I had felt like I needed to prove myself as a gold medalist, and that was probably why I was struggling, was that I didn't now have the opportunity to do it, and I might never. So it was kind of a pretty average time. Looking back now, it's the thing that was the turning point in my career for the good. But I wouldn't want to do it again.
At the time it wasn't. It wasn't good.
At the time it was horrible. I wouldn't want to do it again. But I think without it, I don't know if we would be in the position to have won again in Tokyo. I don't know.
I know. When I chatted with Hamish, it was along the same lines of just surrounding yourself with good people, and that there's like huge, just to get through. If you have any down times in your sport.
Definitely.
I think that's huge. And I want to go back quickly before I go to the next thing. You said you felt like your identity was the Paralympic gold medalist. How, like, I know I've struggled with that a little bit as well, is just sometimes going into just like the classroom, or into like job opportunities. You're looking there and you sometimes feel like, well, I'm just Aaron, the decathlete, or Anna, the gold medalist. How were you able to detach yourself from that and from athletic performances? Like, did you take up different hobbies, or did you? I mean, you said you've spoken to people and you've credited your mental skills coach in interviews and stuff. But was there anything like in particular that really helped you to separate yourself from that identity?
I think, and I think it's, I'm obviously not done. You know, I think it'd be hard if you weren't an athlete and didn't care about your performance because you wouldn't train as hard, or it just wouldn't work very well. But I think it was, Nat, my mental skills person on my team, she just sort of guided me in places to figure out who I was. I left school and I went straight to being a professional athlete. It wasn't just, and I hadn't even learnt the sport, and I hadn't, a lot of other athletes, especially in athletics, I find they've been doing it since they were young, and they have a passion from being, just doing it since they were 8 or whatever. Yeah, and I didn't do that. And so I think it was really just for me finding the love in the training, because that was all I had at the time. Making sure that we had goals outside of jumping big, and in the gym there was goals, and obviously the end goal was to jump big, but to have goals other things, little goals that weren't just, win in Tokyo. But I think also, working on myself as well. I think leading into Rio, I wouldn't say sacrifice, but I chose to focus on my performance a lot more than potentially going out and seeing friends, or going away and having holidays and stuff like that. And I think that was something that I don't regret, because it got me where I am, but I think it took that break to realize that, I was Anna the friend, I was Anna the sister, the daughter, the the student, the everything. So making sure that there was time in my week for those things as well was really important. But I think I'm still, I think like every athlete, if you weren't feeling like you were a little bit of your performance, you probably wouldn't be an athlete. And but it's I think it's just trying to see yourself as something other than just the athlete.
I think
because that's just part of the day.
Like as an athlete, obviously you do live and die by your performance, but at the same time you don't want to, like you said, sacrifice too much that it comes to the point where you resent what you're doing or what you did as an athlete and feel like you've lost however many years. I think that's super important. And there's lots of deep stuff in what we've been talking about, and the next point's no difference. But I want to talk about post-games depression. I think the first time I heard about it was 2015, maybe before the first World University Games, and at that time it wasn't something I ever thought I'd deal with, or I was at the point where I was young, fresh-faced, and there's no way that I'd ever feel a slump in motivation or anything after.
Say it after you've just achieved a massive goal, that would be weird.
There was no way I thought that would ever be a thing. But no. Along since then, it's been 6 years, and there's definitely been times where after big competitions, or it may not even be the big competition of the season, you feel you just feel unmotivated and
for sure
just different things. But I want to know if you had any post games depression or anything like that after Rio.
I think it's a funny one, as you said. Why would you feel sad or a bit lost and a bit funny after you've just sort of achieved sort of a goal? But I think I did. My very first experience with this would be in 2015 as well. I think actually that's where we first met, in 2015 on that World Unis tour.
Pre-camp.
Me and Holly joined in with you guys, which was really cool. But that was such an epic tour for me. I went to my first World Champs at the end of the year, and most of our team was new, and we were having fun. It was an awesome trip, and I think constantly being surrounded by cool people and having good conversations and eating every meal with someone and waking up in the same room as your roommate and absolutely loving it, to coming home and I was the only person in the house when I woke up, and I literally was like, what's going on? And I just didn't know what to do with myself. Where's Holly? I'm meant to be having breakfast with her. What's going on? So I think that was my first experience. I just felt a little bit hollow and a little bit empty, and I was like, what's this?
Yeah.
This is so weird.
Did you know at that time that it was like...
No, and I don't think I really realized at the time. I knew I was feeling a bit woo, but I didn't really go, you're feeling this because you've just got back from a cool tour. And I think we must have all spoken about it together and being like, man, that was a cool tour, we miss everyone. And I think I must have been like, oh, that's why I'm feeling weird. But after, I think, and I'm sure something along the lines of that will happen this time, but after Rio, I think, and for everyone, you have a goal of like a big of a competition, and all of your decisions are made up until that point, like that date. You know, for me, what was it, the 9th of September 2016, that was the date we'd been planning for. We, you know, every decision I made was to do with that date, and that finished.
Rio.
And I was kind of like, and I was kind of just like,
well,
cool, now that's done. I didn't actually plan anything for after this. Like, what? I've got home now. What am I doing?
What am I planning for now?
Like, what's going on? And like, it felt kind of a long way to be planning anything for Tokyo. Like, that's so far away, 4 years, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's a funny one because you put everything into that one day, or for you, obviously 2 days or whatever. But it is sort of like it's like the anticipation of that one day, and then when it's done, it's kind of like, cool, well, that was cool, and now I'm home, what am I going to do with myself? And the goal date, or the I think your brain sort of mentally stops at that point. Like, that's the end of the calendar, and that's that. And then after that, it's kind of just like, well, and I think after Rio, to combat that, I kind of just started training again pretty hard. And just kind of got back into the grind, and I kind of do regret that now, and that's sort of why I'm going to have quite a decent break.
If that was good or not.
I think in terms of keeping busy and working on the next goal, was good. But I think in terms of mentally preparing, like 4 years is a long time. And I mean, there's little, world champs along the way, and that's cool. But I guess like the program and high performance programs are all centered around the 4 year cycle, and that also makes it kind of tough. Like, your big goals are always the big, the Paralympics, Olympics, or whatever. And I think this time, learning from that last time, making sure that I have a decent amount of time off after this to like, and I'm not counting this period in quarantine. This doesn't count. This is just sort of like a weird, everything's on pause. Like, I feel like my emotions are on pause. Like, every time I talk about it, I'm like, what happened? I don't even know. Like, we got off the plane and we're just in a wee hiding for 2 weeks. But I think it'll, I want to take at least a couple of months off structured training at least, and just do some things for fun and fitness and all that, and make sure that I'm catching up with the friends and stuff. But I think it's so easy to slip into that weird mindset of like, wow, this big thing's just happened, and what am I going to do now? Even though there's always other goals, but the big one's gone.
Throwing yourself back into training again straight after could, like you said, could almost be the worst thing. So I think if there's anyone that has those feelings, and we were saying, like, it may not be after an Olympic Games, Paralympic Games, or a World Champs. I mean, for people back home, it could be after like New Zealand secondary schools. Like, I know for me, going through high school, like, that event had just so much like excitement and everything that after that one, you go back to training, and it's like, wow, this isn't as exciting
what are we training for
as
now?
Last week.
So
I think that's really good to like take time for yourself and like hang out with friends that you may have kind of put to the side during the campaign.
For sure, definitely. And just live life a little bit. Work on the you that's not an athlete for a little point in time. I think that's important.
And then, as a 2-time Paralympic gold medalist,
it still feels weird hearing that.
How do you stay motivated to continue? Because I know the world record's 6:01.
Yes.
So there's obviously still that to come, but you've reached the pinnacle of your event. What drives you to like continue going? Because I know I said to mum and dad before I jumped on the call with you was, if someday I won an Olympic gold, I think as soon as I cross the line in the 1500, I'd know I'd be done.
You'd be retired, yeah.
I think there's something there that I'd just be like, I've done it.
Yes.
Time for something else. But yeah, what is it that keeps you going?
I think I probably thought that too, actually. After Rio, I obviously I felt like I needed to prove myself, and I didn't really prepare mentally for that to be my first games. I thought Tokyo would be, and and then after, obviously I needed to rehab, and it was a great excuse to keep going, was to be doing rehab. And I mean, I just wanted to being able to run down the road. I wasn't necessarily looking to be doing long jump at the Paralympics again, but I think I wouldn't be going if I felt like I didn't have bigger jumps in me. And I think it's not been till this last season where I think I jumped a 29 centimeter PB throughout the season. And I think that it doesn't feel like the end. There's still more there, and obviously the world record would be awesome to be able to get one day. It's held by an Australian, and she's awesome. She's retired now, and so it'd be cool to be able to keep it within Oceania and take it here to New Zealand. And also, I think this is the first season, I talked about it a little bit after the season, and it sounds weird, but the first season I felt kind of like a real long jumper. I think since Rio I've grown a lot as a person, and I understand the event more and know what goes into it and know how to sort of what I'm meant to be doing. And I feel like that I've still got a lot more, like one season of finally coming together. I don't think that's enough to figure out my full potential. And I also want to do really well in the able-bodied nationals. I think that's an awesome goal for me as well. I came 4th this year, and I think I'm ranked 2nd on the rankings this year, which is pretty cool, and not something that I ever thought would be a goal of mine. But making big leaps and jumps, I think I still feel like the pieces of the puzzle have all been there at some point. They've just never been all put together at once.
At the same time,
and at the same time. And I think that's the same with every athlete. It doesn't ever all come together at one time, but I feel like there's still more there. And I mean, I'm only 24, so I'll be 27 in Paris, and then you go through the process of deciding what you want to do. And I just hope that my body will allow me to get there. But at this stage, we are planning on training towards Paris. So, I think there's still a bit more in the tank left.
Now that you say that, I know, if I were to call it quits today, I think honestly, in a couple of days' time, I'd be like, I know there's more. I can't. I'm gonna come back. I definitely feel like, for me, if it was an Olympic gold or something, I feel like I'd have to do everything. I'd have to go right. So for me, that would be the pinnacle. But I definitely don't want to be calling it quits until I know, or at least think all right, I think I've tapped out, and that's
for sure.
That's kind of where I am. So it sounds pretty similar to you. Is you've got other little goals, but you just want to see how much you can actually get out of yourself.
I know there's more in there. It needs coaxing out, and hopefully, within the next 3 years it will. I definitely seeing what you did in Tokyo, I definitely think it will come out in the next 3 years. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but the last question I have is, what do you think athletes or just sports in general can possibly do a little bit better to help parasports continue to grow and progress, and maybe create more opportunities for parasports and para-athletes? For sure. I think we're lucky in New Zealand that para-athletics has combined with Athletics New Zealand, and Athletics New Zealand is just the governing body for anyone in New Zealand who does athletics. And I know a lot of other sports who are under Paralympic New Zealand are making the shift over, and I think that will be a really awesome move, because at the end of the day, I just want to be seen as an athlete. I do happen to only have one hand, and I get to go to another, I get my own opportunity to represent my country, but, I put in the hours just like everyone else. And I think that's something that I think is not necessarily understood. I always, and I mean, probably able-bodied people get that too, but I always get the comment, so have you started training for the games yet? And I think, when have I not been training for the games? Like, I've had 2 years off in the last 3 years.
You started 3 years before Rio.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've been training for 8 years for this. So, it's kind of a funny place. But I think that, just things like this, people wanting to understand the classification system. I mean, if you've got a question about it, please, anybody, just send it through. Happy to help. And just being interested and chatting to us at events, because we just want to be included. We're so lucky in New Zealand that I've always felt really welcomed at sports events, and but I'm sure that's not necessarily the case for everybody. I think everyone just wants to be treated the same and have opportunities to be able to perform and to train and have people be excited about them. I think the Paralympic movement is pretty cool because, it gives us a chance to be athletes, but it also gives us a chance to sort of prove what people with disabilities can do and make everyone feel welcome. I think I didn't know what the Paralympic Games was until I was maybe 16 or 15, and I feel like if I had known about it when I was 6 and been able to see people long jumping with one hand when I was 6, what a difference it would have made to me and my confidence growing up and not feeling like I was the only one that had it. So
again, like having the exposure to it, like you mentioned at the start with like Holly and Jess, like you've got exposure to a couple of girls from Dunedin doing the same thing. So exactly. So I think it's got awesome weight behind it, and New Zealand's been super accepting and everything, and we hope it just keeps growing and growing, and people are interested and want to hear more about it, and and there's opportunities there. I definitely think after Rio, I've been gone for 4 years, but I think the team was quite young then, and I think it was really cool to see like the uptake from even younger athletes coming into like para-athletics back in New Zealand after Rio, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more of that following Tokyo. I think before Rio, because I run 100 sometimes too, and it would be me and one other girl at nationals, and that would be it. And then after Rio, we have a full field every year, and so some of those people will not be Paralympians, but I think it's epic that there's opportunities there now, and people know that the opportunities are there to be able to come and run and be active, and despite having a disability. No, I think that's really awesome, and I just appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Thanks for having me.
The past interviews since the games have just been it's so cool to just hear an athlete speak like honestly and openly, and I can tell like you're not saying things in interviews that you think people want to hear. Like you can tell it's coming from the heart, and it's just cool to see athletes.
Exactly.
Doing that,
I think it's been really cool, and thanks for having me on. Great topics, and it's been cool chatting.
A huge thank you once again to Anna for coming on the show and being so candid about her experiences so far. Please head on over to Instagram, show her some support at Anna Kate Grimaldi, and while you're there, please head to the Athletes Platform Instagram page, give me a follow, and share this episode around. I've had some really great feedback so far just from the first episode with Hamish, and I thank you all for that, and I'd love for that to continue so I know what I need to do to keep bringing you the episodes you want to hear. So whether you're listening to this on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, please share it around and give a review to the episode and the show to help the show grow. And let me know if you have any comments about today's episode, or if you've dealt with any of the issues that Anna discussed. I think it's really important to start talking about these things with people, especially within the same community as yourself, to help you grow and develop as an athlete and as a person. Thank you once again for listening, and I'll see you next week.